Staying in contact. I'm London Mitchell. In these weekly discussions, we focus on issues facing the greater Toledo area and Northwest Ohio. Individuals who are working to make a difference, our culture, and our heritage. My guest for this episode is Sandy Spang, the Executive Director of TMCOG, the Toledo Metropolitan Area Council of Governments. A legislative priority for TMCOG since 2008 has been a US 23 bypass north of Columbus that would address the growing congestion and safety concerns that now exist. And as Sandy Spang explains, the bypass would be in all of our best interests.
It is, Lon, because, we've been advocating at TMCOG and other stakeholders in Northwest Ohio have been advocating for a more efficient route to our state capital since 2008. But we really haven't had this kind of opportunity to really see that happen in all of that time. And at this moment, we feel that we do have that kind of opportunity because we have an amendment before us in the state budget in the Senate, on the Senate side, and we need to see that now in the full budget. So we need to see the House of Representatives also adopt that into the full budget. So we're asking people to, first of all, to thank our state senators for the action that they have taken to call for a true plan for a bypass. And then we need to urge our state reps to add it as well to their budget and to the full budget.
For those listening who really don't know about the controversy between improvements to Route 23 to make it easier to get to Columbus or the bypass, what exactly are we talking about?
So in my lifetime, there have been 39 traffic lights added to our route from Northwest Ohio to Columbus, which is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. There have been 39 traffic lights added between Waldo and Delaware. And anybody who's driven that in recent time knows that it is very congested. Traffic planners will tell you that it's 30% over capacity, and that in not too many years, it's expected to be 50% over capacity. What's interesting is if you do what we all do, and you put into your phone that you're heading to the Capitol, you're going to the Capitol building, you would expect it to take you down Route 23, right? But it might not. It might take you on Route 68, which is a two-lane road through a very agricultural area. You'll go through Kenton, that route. I know that route because my husband's family is from Logan County, from Bell Fountain, but we never thought of that as a route to Columbus directly, but that may be the way they take you. They will often route you on Route 315, an area I always thought, oh, what lovely houses there, carries a lot of traffic now. So this is having an impact, not just on the heavily congested Route 23, but it's also having a big impact on other roads as well. And so it's a real problem, not just for passenger vehicles, but for freight, because it's very unreliable. Business likes reliability. They like predictability, and they don't know how long it's going to take, how long congestion, how that's going to have an impact on how long it's going to take to get a load of product to Columbus or back up north from Columbus. So
And in the greater Toledo area, especially from the port, we ship a lot by truck over the highway to Columbus.
We do, and we hope to see even more of that with the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge, which is going to become the most important land port from Canada. That is going to be a remarkable addition to our freight network. And when that opens in fall of this year, and people say, well, yes, it's a much larger bridge, but is that really going to have a big impact? It surely is. The Ambassador Bridge is an interesting story because the Ambassador Bridge is a family-owned bridge, and which is unusual. And both of its its feet are in residential neighborhoods. So at night, not a lot of freight moves through customs. The Gordie Howe Bridge on the U.S. side alone has 167 acres of customs processing, 36 customs bays, and then 20, I think it's 24 specialty customs bays. So this is going to be a revolution in customs processing, and almost as many on the Canadian side, and a lot of new technology and new ways of processing customs. So it's going to be real reliability for the movement of freight through that bridge. And then the first 1.9 miles of 75 as trucks exit that bridge have been reworked so that there are no difficult turns for the trucks. They've just completely reworked that. So I like to say that those trucks are going to be in Northwest Ohio before they know it. They'll never know they're in Detroit. They'll just be boom, right down 75. But we want to keep that free flowing movement of freight going. And that doesn't happen then when they hit right outside of Marion. It all starts to slow down, and they hit this, incredible backup of traffic. And so what happened was we were very hopeful about a study called the Strategic Transportation and Development Analysis. And it was a statewide study, $10 million. And it was meant to look at the intersection of transportation and development throughout the state. But there was supposed to be a special emphasis on the Toledo to Columbus corridor. And that study came, it was supposed to be out December 31st. And we were waiting, looking forward to see what that study would say. We believed it would say that while there needed to be improvements to Route 23 itself, which had been called for in a study that had come out about a month before called 23 Connect, which called for improvements to 23, attempting to eliminate some of the traffic lights, those 39 additional traffic lights. We thought it would also call for a bypass. Well, it came out on Valentine's Day, sandwiched right in between Jim Tressel being sworn in as lieutenant governor at noon and people taking their sweethearts out to dinner, kind of snuck out there on a Friday. And we were shocked that it did not call for a bypass. And we really began to take a closer look at that 23 Connect study. And I got to tell you, those improvements to 23, which we were told in this new study, the Strategic Transportation and Development Study, would be enough. Looking closer at them, they have listed the challenges to each of those projects. And I had our map makers at TMACOG put all of those challenges on a map. And I've got to tell you, each one of those has so many challenges. Some of them, it says, will slow EMS time, response times. Some of them will make it difficult to access historic sites or schools. Some of them will cause people to divert through neighborhoods. Each of those, can you imagine the public meetings and how people are going to resist those? They're very complex projects. They're not funded yet at this time. They haven't been even planned at this time. These could take decades for these improvements to take place. And in the meantime, Columbus area continues to grow and develop. So we need some action now. And so we met with our state senators, Reineke, Hicks Hudson, Senator Gavrone was involved, and they went to the Senate Transportation Committee and presented this and said, this is not going to be adequate for the economic development of Northwest Ohio or the economic development of Columbus. We're not going to be able to take advantage of what the Gordie Howe has to offer, what the Intel development in Columbus has to offer, and we need a bypass. So the plan is to connect somewhere right around the Marion, Waldo area over to 71. And it may follow one of the current routes, 229, 529. But it calls for the turnpike to get involved. So it very likely will be a toll road. not a long toll road, but it's very likely to be a toll road, because if it's a toll road, it can be built. Some predictions are in as little as 5 to 7 years. And that is the shortest possible time that we could possibly get a project like this done. And, you know, we see a lot along the East Coast. We see a lot of private contractors coming in and building these projects. So that is even a possibility. But what the amendment that the senators have proposed calls for is within a very short window of time, 3 months from the passage of the budget, for a plan to be developed for a bypass. Not a study, a plan.
So let's recap. The bypass in the view of TMACOG would really be a boost to the local economy of Northwest Ohio.
Absolutely. You know, it will benefit Cedar Point. Folks in Columbus who want to visit Cedar Point will have a faster route up to that area. It will mean that we will have a better chance at manufacturing products that might be of, you know, benefit to Intel or other companies located in the Columbus area. It means that we could, you know, benefit more from the growth in the Columbus area. Absolutely, we think that this is an economic development issue. This is really, it certainly will make it easier for people to get to their Ohio State game, but it's really about freight. It's really about economic development.
So tell me, Sandy Spang, what are you asking Joe Average Citizen to do?
We really want people to reach out to their state representatives and let them know that this is important to them, that they think that this matters, that this is about jobs. And I think here's the thing that they need to know. We are the only region in the state that does not have unimpeded freeway access to the state capital. We're the only region in the state that has to go through traffic lights to get to the state capital. That's what we need to say to our state representatives. You know, and that's it. You know, I forgot to mention another reason why those improvements to 23 are likely to be very difficult to make happen. You know, they would have to move so many of the utilities. Anybody who's seen all of that development on 23, and do you know when they have to move those utilities, you know who's responsible for that? The utilities. They have to pay. So they are going to, can you imagine, again, as a former elected official who's attended a lot of public meetings where people have opposed projects, every one of those projects, I was like, oh, I wouldn't want to be at that public meeting. Oh, that's going to be a tough one. Golf courses, cemeteries, historic areas. Oh, every one of those is going to have folks opposing it. There was a 2.5-mile stretch where you couldn't make a divided highway where you couldn't make a left turn. People are not going to, that's not going to be a popular one. This is one project as opposed to 40 separate projects. This is one project. And you know what? It's going to make life better for those folks in Delaware, because it's going to get those trucks off their roads. It's going to get some of that traffic off their roads, and it's going to improve their quality of life too. It's going to make life better for people who live on 68 and 315. It's going to balance out the traffic. It's interesting, in that study that I mentioned that came out on Valentine's Day, it said, you know, if we had built this road, you know, from scratch, sort of, you know, if we built a road today and said, let's build a road from Toledo to Columbus, of course we would build it this way. But we're sort of stuck with what we have, is sort of the message that the study had. But you know what? We can think big ideas in Ohio. We can think about Route 24. Do you remember when Route 24, there were terrible accidents on Route 24? Yeah. It was not a good route for freight. People said, we can't change Route 24, but we did, didn't we? And it wasn't easy. You know,
Port to port.
That's right. That's right. Port to port. But now that we've done it, we know it was the right thing to do. It was a big, bold, difficult thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. It is now safer. It's absolutely an economic development plus. It's a great freight route. Fort Wayne is a terrific town. They are developing and doing well, and we want to be connected to them, and they want to be connected to us. 24 was a good move. We can think big ideas here. We can do bold things. We can do this. And now is the time. We are fortunate, Northwest Ohio. The reason this happened is we have in Northwest Ohio, we have the leadership of the state Senate. We have Senator McCauley from Lima is the Senate president. We have the Senate Pro Tem, Senator Reineke. Senator Hicks Hudson from Toledo showed great leadership on this, and Senator Gavarone worked with the senator from Delaware. That's an important point. Worked with the senator from Delaware to put this amendment in, and now we need the representatives to, on their side of the budget, to add this in. So this is the best opportunity we've had since we started advocating for this in 2008. So we need to seize the moment here. And we need to speak with one voice from Northwest Ohio. Maybe we haven't always been good at that, right? But this is one thing that we can say. We are the only region in the state that does not have unimpeded freeway access to our state capital. And we need to change that, and this is our best opportunity. So we need to take just a moment. You can send an email, make a phone call, but we need to move quickly. The transportation budget will be wrapped up within days. And so if people want to act on this, they need to move very quickly to do so. It doesn't have to be a long letter. They just need to say Northwest Ohio needs a bypass. Now, people need to understand this isn't going to cut 45 minutes off your trip to Columbus, but it's going to make it a reliable, safe, efficient, unimpeded trip. And it's going to get the freight, a lot of the freight will move off of 23. It will balance traffic and make some of those other roads that have been overloaded and carrying a lot of the traffic, it will balance things off, make things better for them. So it's the right thing to do.
Sandy Spang, Executive Director of the Toledo Metropolitan Area Council of Governments, advocating for the long-discussed US 23 bypass north of Columbus. I'm London Mitchell, inviting you to contact me through my website, londonmitchell.news. And please, join us again next week as we continue staying in contact.
Previous episodes of Staying in Contact with London Mitchell are available on Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbeam, Podchaser, the Stream 419 app, Spotify, and londonmitchell.news.